History is a river, flowing endlessly, carrying with it the stories of civilizations both known and forgotten. Some societies rise with grandeur, leaving behind monuments, texts, and legacies that echo through the ages. Others vanish quietly, their presence lingering only in ruins, artifacts, or whispered legends. This video explores 50 such civilizations lost to time and mystery. Societies that shaped the human story, yet left behind puzzles that continue to captivate archaeologists, historians, and dreamers alike. From ancient river valleys to sun-scorched deserts, from dense jungles to wind-swept islands, human ingenuity has manifested in countless ways. Some built cities with astonishing precision. Others crafted intricate art or developed spiritual systems that hint at profound wisdom. And yet, for every achievement, there are questions that remain unanswered. Why did they rise? How did they organize their societies? What beliefs guided their daily lives? And why did they disappear? These questions are the threads that weave together the tapestry of forgotten history, a blend of known facts and tantalizing mysteries. This journey will take us across continents and millennia, from the earliest urban settlements of the Indus Valley to the enigmatic mounds of Norte Chico, from the labyrinthine palaces of the Minoans to the colossal heads of the Olmecs. Each civilization offers a window into human creativity, ambition, and vulnerability, reminding us that the story of humanity is as much about the silences as it is about the chronicles. By exploring these lost worlds, we awaken our curiosity, challenge our assumptions, and allow ourselves to imagine lives, dreams, and societies that existed long before our own. In the gentle cadence of history, we begin our exploration, attuned to both the light of discovery and the shadows of mystery that await in the civilizations lost to time. The Indus Valley civilization rises in our imagination like a city shrouded in morning mist, vast and orderly, yet full of secrets. Stretching across the fertile plains of what is now Pakistan and northwest India, it was one of the earliest urban societies, contemporaneous with ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia. Cities like Mohenjo-daro and Harappa showcase remarkable planning. Wide streets intersecting at precise angles, uniform bricks baked with meticulous care, and drainage systems so advanced they would seem modern even to our eyes today. Walking through their streets, one can almost feel the rhythm of daily life, the faint echo of merchants calling, children weaving through alleyways, artisans crafting tools and ornaments with care. And yet, despite all this sophistication, the voice of the people remains silent. They left no written history we can read, no chronicles of kings and queens, no annals of wars or treaties. Their language, recorded in countless seals and inscriptions, remains undeciphered, a puzzle locked for millennia. It is a striking contrast, a civilization so structured, so intelligent, yet so quiet in its testimony to the present. Archaeologists can reconstruct the outlines of homes, workshops, and granaries, but the meaning behind their symbols, the very thoughts of the people, remains elusive. This silence is both humbling and enchanting. We see the grandeur and precision of human ingenuity, yet we are confronted with an absence of explanation, a reminder that time has a way of erasing even the most meticulous achievements. What do they call themselves? What did they believe? What stories did parents whisper to children at night? These questions hover like soft shadows over the ruins, unanswered, yet beckoning us to imagine. The sophistication of the Indus Valley extends beyond architecture. Their economy suggests a highly organized trade network, linking distant settlements across hundreds of miles. Artisans crafted jewelry from carnelian and faience, and standardized weights and measures point to a system of commerce and regulation that rivals ancient Mesopotamia. There is evidence of long-distance trade with regions as far as Mesopotamia, exchanging goods, ideas, and perhaps culture itself. Yet, no king's name has been found, no royal tomb discovered, and no epic chronicled. Power and society seem to have been structured in ways that remain mysterious, a society operating efficiently without leaving the personal mark of its rulers. Even their decline is shrouded in uncertainty. Theories abound: shifts in river patterns, changes in monsoon cycles, gradual soil degradation, or perhaps the slow fragmentation of their social structures. There is no single catastrophe recorded, no invasion that can explain the disappearance of their cities. Instead, the Indus Valley civilization seems to have faded gently, like morning fog under the rising sun, leaving behind the physical markers of an advanced society, but erasing the stories of the people themselves. This quiet disappearance is haunting in its subtlety. It is as if an entire chapter of human history has been folded into shadow, waiting for patient observers to unfold it once more. The mystery deepens when we consider the artifacts themselves. Seals bearing enigmatic symbols suggest a system of communication or record-keeping far more sophisticated than previously imagined. The motifs are intricate, combining animals, human figures, and abstract designs in ways that hint at ritual, identity, or mythology. Tiny statues and figurines, often depicting humans or animals, suggest beliefs or social roles that we are only beginning to speculate about. Every object speaks of intentionality and meaning, yet the absence of a readable language keeps their stories tantalizingly out of reach. This tension between the clarity of their craftsmanship and the opacity of their message is what makes the Indus Valley so endlessly fascinating. In contemplating their cities, one cannot help but notice the careful consideration given to daily life. Homes were often uniform in size and layout, suggesting some communal approach to living and planning. Streets were straight and organized, lined with drains that channeled water efficiently, a system that anticipates modern urban planning. Public baths and granaries indicate not only technical knowledge, but also a collective attention to hygiene and community needs. Such features hint at a civilization deeply attuned to both the environment and the people inhabiting it, a world that harmonized human ambition with practical wisdom. And yet, despite this harmony, there remains a profound sense of absence. The Indus people themselves are missing from the pages of history in every literal sense. Their names, their voices, their personal stories, all are silent. This silence is what makes exploring the Indus Valley so evocative for the imagination. It allows the mind to wander freely, to construct narratives, to speculate gently about lives once lived. Each ruin, each artifact, becomes a vessel for possibility, a doorway into human experience that can never be fully recaptured, but can be felt through careful contemplation and empathetic imagination. The allure of the Indus Valley is not simply in the questions it poses, but in the balance it strikes between human mastery and human mystery. Here is a civilization capable of extraordinary feats, yet reminds us of the fragility of human endeavor. Even the most carefully built cities, the most sophisticated trade networks, the most precise inscriptions, can fade into obscurity. And this fading is not a violent erasure. It is a gentle slipping away, leaving traces enough to marvel at, but not enough to fully satisfy our curiosity. It teaches patience, humility, and reverence for the vast spectrum of human history that stretches beyond the written word. As we leave the Indus Valley and move forward into the stories of other lost civilizations, the tone is set. History is not always a clear story. Sometimes it is a whisper, a shadow, a fragment. And in these fragments, we discover not only the brilliance of civilizations long gone, but also the beauty of human imagination itself, capable of reaching across millennia to sense lives, dreams, and societies that are otherwise silent. The Indus Valley is the first of many such whispers on this journey, a soft reminder that the past is never fully gone. It waits quietly, patiently, for those willing to listen. Cattlehook rises in the imagination like a village frozen in clay and sun, a place where human life seems to cling to each rooftop, each wall, in a delicate web of continuity. Located in what is now central Turkey, This settlement existed around 9,000 years ago, during a time when humans were gradually shifting from nomadic hunting and gathering to a more settled agricultural life. Unlike later cities with defined streets and avenues, Cattlehook was a labyrinth of homes built tightly together, roof to roof, forming a living mosaic of clay, timber, and reed. To navigate the settlement, one would climb down ladders from one roof to another, stepping carefully over chimneys and storage spaces, crossing the threshold into neighbors' homes as if moving through a continuous, shared world. This unusual urban design immediately creates a sense of intimacy and communal life, but it also leaves questions in its wake. Why this arrangement, and what does it reveal about the society that built it? Walking through Cattlehook in imagination, one can feel the rhythm of life as it once was. The smell of baked clay mingled with the scent of livestock. Children may have run along the rooftops, passing messages or toys, while women and men tended to domestic chores, weaving baskets, grinding grain, or preparing meals in hearths that filled the homes with warmth and smoke. Inside the rooms, walls were often decorated with vivid murals depicting animals, hunts, and abstract geometric patterns. These paintings were not merely decorative. They suggest rituals, beliefs, and a worldview intertwined with daily life. Each home was a microcosm of society, yet the settlement as a whole functioned as a seamless network, a single organism in which individuals were connected physically, socially, and spiritually. The mystery of Cattlehook deepens when one considers its social and spiritual dimensions. Archaeological evidence points to a society that may have been remarkably egalitarian, with little evidence of centralized authority or grand rulers. Burials were often beneath the floors of houses, sometimes accompanied by offerings or ornaments, suggesting that ancestors remained close to the living, their presence interwoven with the rhythm of daily life. Such practices hint at a culture deeply connected to family, memory, and the cycles of birth and death. The murals depicting gods, animals, and enigmatic symbols imply a spiritual world that guided their actions and perhaps offered a form of protection or blessing. Yet, without written records, these interpretations remain speculative, a gentle invitation to wonder rather than a definitive explanation. One of the most striking contrasts within Cattlehook is between its domestic intimacy and the broader mysteries it presents. Here is a civilization that prioritized community and interior space over monumental architecture. There were no towering temples or sprawling palaces. The city itself, with its rooftops and alleys, became both home and sanctuary. Yet, despite the apparent simplicity, the settlement reflects sophisticated planning. The arrangement of dwellings, storage areas, and communal spaces indicates careful consideration of both safety and social interaction. The lack of streets may have been a protective feature, making the settlement harder to attack, or a conscious cultural choice that emphasized togetherness rather than separation. It is a gentle reminder that human ingenuity does not always manifest in grandeur. It often lives quietly in structures designed to nurture life itself. Cattlehook's eventual decline and disappearance remain as enigmatic as its life. The settlement thrived for centuries, yet by the end of the Neolithic period, it was abandoned. Some theories suggest environmental changes, such as shifts in rainfall patterns, soil depletion, or disease, may have made the site unsustainable. Others propose that social transformations or migrations gradually emptied the settlement, leaving behind walls, murals, and artifacts as silent witnesses to a vibrant community. There was no cataclysmic destruction. The fading of Cattlehook feels more like a slowly dimming flame than a violent storm. In this quiet disappearance, there is a soft poetry, a civilization that flourished in harmony with its surroundings, leaving behind clues to its ingenuity while allowing its ultimate fate to remain a gentle mystery. Artifacts recovered from Cattlehook offer further glimpses into the minds and lives of its inhabitants. Figurines of humans and animals, often stylized and abstract, suggest a symbolic or religious significance that we are only beginning to interpret. The murals, in their bright reds, blacks, and whites, convey a narrative of human existence intertwined with nature, ritual, and perhaps myth. Tools and everyday objects reveal a people skilled in craft, adapting to their environment with intelligence and creativity. Yet, as rich as this material evidence is, it cannot speak directly. It is a language we are learning to read, filled with pauses and ellipses, a record that invites reflection more than it demands comprehension. Cattlehook teaches us about the fragility and resilience of human societies. It was a place that thrived not through the conquest of others or the accumulation of wealth, but through careful stewardship of community, environment, and tradition. Its disappearance reminds us that even civilizations built on thoughtful planning, resource management, and social cohesion are vulnerable to change, both internal and external. And yet, the echoes of Cattlehook persist, not in dramatic monuments or written records, but in the walls and rooftops, the murals, the figurines, and the subtle layout of the settlement. It is a whisper from the past, inviting us to consider the lives of people who walked, climbed, cooked, loved, and dreamed in a world very different from our own, yet deeply human. As we prepare to leave Cattlehook and explore the next civilization, we carry with us an understanding of human life in its earliest urban forms, a life rich in connection, ritual, and artistry, yet forever elusive in its full story. Cattlehook's charm lies not in grand narratives, but in its intimacy, its mystery, and the quiet hum of a community that existed harmoniously within its own walls. Its labyrinthine streets and roofed walkways remind us that history is not always linear or monumental. Sometimes, it is woven into the very fabric of daily existence. And as we move forward, we encounter other civilizations, each with their own light and shadow, their own brilliance and unanswered questions, continuing the quiet journey through the tapestry of human history. Far to the east of Cattlehook, in the rolling plains of what is now Romania, Moldova, and Ukraine, stretch the enigmatic settlements of the Cucuteni, Tripilia culture. Flourishing between approximately 4,800 and 3,000 BCE, these communities built some of the largest prehistoric settlements in Europe, predating many contemporary cities elsewhere on the continent. Their homes, often circular or rectangular and arranged in concentric rings, were constructed with mud, clay, and timber, showcasing a sophisticated understanding of communal space and architecture. What immediately captivates the imagination is their sheer scale. Some settlements covered hundreds of acres, with thousands of dwellings, forming what modern observers would recognize as proto-cities. Yet, despite their size and intricacy, these settlements were never fortified in the conventional sense, leaving us to wonder what kind of social order and security existed among these people. Daily life in the Cucuteni, Tripilia settlements was deeply intertwined with the cycles of nature. The inhabitants were skilled farmers, cultivating wheat, barley, and legumes, while also domesticating animals and gathering wild plants. Their material culture reveals a society attentive to both function and beauty. Pottery, in particular, stands out as a hallmark of this civilization. Exquisitely decorated with spirals, swirls, and geometric motifs, often painted in red, white, and black, these vessels speak not only of practical use, but of aesthetic expression and symbolic communication. Each pot carries a fragment of meaning that remains largely undeciphered today, hinting at beliefs, rituals, or cultural values that are tantalizingly just out of reach. It is a civilization that appears to have celebrated life, community, and artistry in equal measure, leaving behind traces that shimmer like whispers across millennia. Yet perhaps the most puzzling feature of the Cucuteni, Tripilia culture is the pattern of their settlements' deliberate destruction. Archaeologists have discovered that many villages were systematically burned every few generations. Some scholars propose that this was a ritual practice, a symbolic renewal of life and space, akin to the cyclical destruction and rebirth found in many spiritual traditions. Others speculate it may have been a pragmatic solution, clearing the old structures to make way for expansion or preventing the accumulation of pests and diseases. Regardless of the reason, the act of burning these settlements imbues them with an air of deliberate mystery, as though the Cucutini, Tripilia people understood the impermanence of human achievement and embraced it with ritualized grace. The smoldering ruins, once vibrant homes, now lie silent under the soil, leaving only fragments for archaeologists to reconstruct, a puzzle of human life that can never be fully solved. Social organization within these settlements remains a subject of intriguing debate. The uniformity of house sizes suggests a relatively egalitarian society, where no single dwelling towered above the others to indicate authority. Yet the scale of some settlements, housing potentially thousands of people, implies a level of coordination and communal governance that we can barely imagine. How are resources distributed? How do these communities resolve conflict or plan large-scale activities? These questions linger like shadows over the landscape, their answers buried with the ashes of countless homes. It is a delicate balance between what can be observed and what must be inferred, a tension that gives the Cucutini, Tripilia culture its enduring fascination. The art of the Cucutini, Tripilia people continues to speak across the centuries, especially through their figurines. Clay sculptures of women, often stylized with exaggerated features, suggest a reverence for fertility, motherhood, or perhaps divine femininity. Some figurines are abstract and symbolic, hinting at ritual or spiritual practices that remain enigmatic. The combination of artistic sophistication with ritualized destruction creates a vivid duality. Life celebrated in color and form, yet constantly subject to impermanence and renewal. This duality, the simultaneous assertion of presence and embrace of absence, is a motif that echoes across many lost civilizations, reflecting a universal human consciousness attuned to both creation and dissolution. The Cucutini, Tripilia settlements also offer insights into the technological innovations of their time. Beyond pottery and architecture, they developed tools for farming, weaving, and crafting that enabled them to thrive in a challenging environment. The careful layout of their villages suggests a deep understanding of spatial planning, hygiene, and communal organization. Streets and alleys, though not paved, were deliberate in their placement, guiding movement and social interaction. There is evidence of shared storage spaces, indicating a culture that valued cooperation and collective welfare. Yet all these achievements, impressive as they are, were ultimately fragile, highlighting the delicate interplay between human ingenuity and the inexorable forces of nature and time. As the centuries passed, the Cucutini, Tripilia people gradually disappeared from the historical record, absorbed by migrations, environmental changes, or transformations of social structures. There was no sudden catastrophe recorded in the soil, no evidence of a sweeping invasion or epidemic. But the settlements faded, leaving behind a landscape dotted with burned bricks, shards of pottery, and the haunting silhouettes of circular dwellings. It is this quiet fading, rather than a dramatic collapse, that makes their story both poignant and mesmerizing. Here is a civilization that reached remarkable heights in community organization, artistry, and daily life, yet its memory survives only in fragments, inviting us to contemplate the ephemeral nature of human achievement. The allure of the Cucutini, Tripilia culture lies not just in what is visible, but in the silences that accompany each archaeological find. Every burned village, every carefully decorated pot, every clay figurine is a window into a world that thrived in harmony with its environment, yet remains largely unknowable. The patterns of life, the rhythms of work and celebration, the rituals and beliefs, all are glimpsed through shadows and whispers. And it is precisely this mixture of knowledge and mystery that captivates the imagination. We can understand certain details, yet the full tapestry of their society remains tantalizingly beyond reach. It reminds us that history is not always complete, and that some of the most compelling stories are those that linger in absence as much as presence. As we leave the vast plains of Eastern Europe and the smoldering remnants of Cucutini, Tripilia settlements, the mind is left with a lingering sense of awe and quiet reflection. These people, though gone, remind us that human creativity and community have always been intertwined with mystery, ritual, and adaptation. Their story flows gently into the broader river of forgotten civilizations, connecting the innovations of early urban life to the profound enigmas that echo through the millennia. In the quiet aftermath of their villages, we sense the universal human journey, the urge to build, to decorate, to commune, and to leave traces of our existence, even when time inevitably reclaims them. This delicate tension between permanence and impermanence, mastery and mystery, prepares us to move onward into worlds that were no less extraordinary, no less quietly profound. Long before the rise of the great city-states, before agriculture had fully taken hold, there stood a place that challenges everything we thought we knew about the beginnings of civilization. Göbekli Tepe, perched upon a gentle plateau in southeastern Turkey, is a testament to human ambition, ingenuity, and mystery. Built around 11,000 years ago, it predates Stonehenge by several millennia, and even predates the settled villages of the Neolithic period. Massive stone pillars, some reaching over 6 meters in height, rise from the earth, carved with astonishing depictions of animals, snakes, boars, foxes, and birds, each etched with care, each telling a story we may never fully decipher. The scale of the construction, the precision of the carving, and the deliberate arrangement of these circles reveal a society capable of extraordinary cooperation, yet one whose written words remain silent. There are no inscriptions, no records, only the deliberate and enigmatic presence of stone in a landscape otherwise untamed. The very purpose of Göbekli Tepe remains a riddle. Scholars suggest it was a ceremonial or religious center, a place where humans gathered, not for the demands of agriculture or daily survival, but to engage in ritual, contemplation, and perhaps communion with forces they did not fully understand. Unlike later civilizations, there were no permanent settlements attached to the site. People came and went, perhaps seasonally, leaving behind the immense stones as markers of shared belief or social cohesion. The deliberate burial of the site, centuries after its construction, adds another layer of intrigue. Why would a society painstakingly build such a magnificent monument only to bury it? Some suggest a spiritual or symbolic act, a form of ritual closure, while others see it as a practical response to changing social or environmental circumstances. In either case, the burial itself transforms Göbekli Tepe into a paradox, a monument both meant to be seen and deliberately hidden from view. Walking through the imagined circles of Göbekli Tepe, one can almost sense the quiet energy of gatherings long past. Fires may have burned in the center, illuminating the carvings, casting flickering shadows that brought the animals to life. Perhaps chanting, drumming, or songs echoed across the plateau, voices blending into the wind that sweeps the hills. The stone pillars, immovable and enduring, suggest a human desire to connect with permanence in a world still largely defined by mobility, hunting, and seasonal change. In this contrast, the permanence of stone versus the fleeting presence of humans, we glimpse a profound tension that recurs throughout human history, the urge to create lasting meaning in a transient world. The carvings themselves are a marvel of imagination and observation. Each animal, each motif, is rendered with precision, yet there is a sense that they hold meaning beyond literal depiction. Some appear to carry symbolic weight, perhaps tied to spiritual beliefs, social hierarchy, or cosmology. Scholars debate whether the animals represent totems, ancestral spirits, or natural forces, and the absence of written records allows the mind to wander into possibilities as endless as they are unprovable. These stones are a language we do not speak, yet they communicate something profoundly human, an understanding of place, community, and the desire to leave a mark on the earth that transcends the brevity of individual life. Göbekli Tepe also challenges conventional timelines. Its construction predates the widespread adoption of agriculture, suggesting that the impetus to gather and build monumental structures may have inspired the development of farming, rather than the other way around. The people who raised these stones were still primarily hunter-gatherers, yet they coordinated efforts that would require planning, organization, and shared purpose on a scale previously attributed only to sedentary societies. This discovery reconfigures our understanding of human social evolution, hinting that spirituality, ritual, and collective ambition may have been driving forces behind the formation of early civilization. The deliberate burial of the site adds another dimension of quiet mystery. Archaeologists have uncovered layers of sediment and rubble carefully placed atop the stone circles, suggesting that the act was intentional, precise, and meaningful. It transforms Göbekli Tepe from a mere ruin into a narrative act, a civilization's final statement, a decision to enshrine their creations beneath the earth rather than leave them exposed to the elements. The reasons remain speculative, yet the act itself speaks to a consciousness of impermanence and an awareness of history as something to be curated, rather than merely experienced. In this gesture, we feel the echo of human thought reaching across 10 millennia, hinting at reflection, foresight, and perhaps even ritualized farewell. In addition to its monumental architecture, Göbekli Tepe offers insights into the social organization of early humans. Coordinating the quarrying, carving, and placement of massive stones would require not only technical skill, but a sophisticated understanding of human collaboration. It suggests leadership, negotiation, and shared cultural purpose, all without the hierarchical structures we associate with later urban civilizations. Here, society was both communal and ambitious, capable of producing extraordinary feats of engineering while maintaining cohesion among people still largely dependent on foraging and seasonal movement. This balance of ingenuity and social fluidity is both inspiring and perplexing, highlighting the delicate interplay between human creativity and the limitations of the era. Göbekli Tepe's enduring fascination lies in its blend of clarity and mystery. The stones are tangible, real, and awe-inspiring, yet their meaning eludes definitive interpretation. They speak of human aspiration, collective imagination, and a desire to reach beyond the immediate needs of survival. Yet they also whisper of questions we cannot answer. Why build without permanent settlement? Why bury the work so carefully? What were the stories, songs, and beliefs that accompanied this monumental effort? In these absences, we find the same allure that draws us to other lost civilizations. The tension between what exists and what remains unknowable, the interplay of human ambition and the quiet persistence of time. As we leave the plateau of Göbekli Tepe and consider its place in history, we carry with us a sense of awe and quiet contemplation. It is a civilization that challenges our assumptions, invites deep reflection, and reminds us that the roots of human society are more complex, mysterious, and beautiful than the simple narratives we often construct. In the silent stone circles, we feel the echo of countless hands, of shared labor, of reverence and creativity, reaching across millennia. And as we move forward in our journey through forgotten civilizations, we are prepared to encounter societies that, like Göbekli Tepe, illuminate human ingenuity while guarding their secrets, leaving us with questions that stir the imagination and invite us into a deeper, quieter engagement with history. On the sun-drenched island of Crete, nestled between the shimmering waters of the Aegean Sea, the Minoans flourished as one of the earliest civilizations of Europe. Thriving between approximately 3000 and 1450 BCE, they left behind a world of vibrant art, monumental architecture, and mysterious symbols that continue to captivate historians and archaeologists alike. The Minoans were seafarers, traders, and artists, their lives interwoven with the rhythm of the sea, the cycles of the seasons, and the patterns of human interaction. Cities such as Knossos, Phaistos, and Malea were not simply places of residence. They were centers of culture, administration, and spiritual life, adorned with colorful frescoes that depicted rituals, athletic competitions, and natural scenes with an almost ethereal delicacy. These images allow us to peer into their world, imagining the daily life of a society both sophisticated and enigmatic. The architecture of the Minoans reveals an advanced understanding of space, function, and aesthetics. Palaces were not just seats of power. They were complex, labyrinthine structures with multiple stories, storage rooms, ceremonial halls, and living quarters. Light and ventilation were carefully considered, with open courtyards allowing sun to penetrate the heart of the buildings. Staircases wound through the palaces, connecting rooms in ways that were both practical and elegant. The famous frescoes, painted directly onto plastered walls, display a mastery of color, movement, and symbolism. Dolphins leap across waves, graceful women engage in ceremonial dances, and sacred bulls dominate ritualistic scenes. The artistry is not merely decorative. It communicates values, beliefs, and perhaps even social hierarchies, offering a window into a civilization that celebrated life with vibrancy and care. Central to the Minoan story is the interplay between myth and reality. Legends such as the Labyrinth of the Minotaur, while often considered fantastical, may hold echoes of Minoan architectural and cultural practices. The sprawling palaces with their complex corridors, ceremonial spaces, and hidden chambers suggest a civilization familiar with both physical and symbolic labyrinths. Their mythology, captured and later adapted by the Mycenaeans and the Greeks, continues to intrigue because it is inseparable from their cultural identity. It reminds us that for the Minoans, as for many civilizations, art and myth were not frivolities. They were expressions of worldview, markers of belief, and tools for transmitting communal memory across generations. Trade and seafaring were vital to Minoan life. Ships laden with pottery, olive oil, saffron, and metals traveled across the Mediterranean, connecting Crete with Egypt, the Levant, and mainland Greece. This connectivity brought not only wealth but also ideas, influencing art, architecture, and social practices. The Minoans' reach, however, was delicate, reliant on the mercy of the seas and the stability of distant trade partners. This connection to a broader world made them both powerful and vulnerable, a duality reflected in the eventual decline of their civilization. Their disappearance was not sudden, but marked by a gradual fading, influenced by volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, and possibly invasions or assimilation into Mycenaean culture. The very forces that allowed the Minoans to thrive, the sea, the earth, and human ambition, also contributed to their vulnerability. Religion and ritual played a profound role in Minoan society. Evidence suggests a nature-centered belief system, with deities associated with fertility, animals, and the cycles of the earth. Shrines and ceremonial areas within the palaces, as well as in isolated sacred caves, indicate a society attentive to spiritual practice. Figurines of women, often interpreted as priestesses or goddesses, point to the possible prominence of female divinity or leadership in ritual life. Bull leaping, depicted in frescoes and interpreted by scholars as a ceremonial sport, may have had both symbolic and ritual significance, merging human skill, bravery, and religious observance. These practices, while shrouded in mystery, convey a civilization deeply invested in the interplay of human life, natural forces, and spiritual understanding. The decline of the Minoans is as enigmatic as their achievements. Around 1450 BCE, many of the palaces were destroyed, leaving behind ruins that would inspire myth and speculation. The eruption of the nearby Thera volcano, with its catastrophic ash clouds and tsunamis, is often cited as a critical factor. Yet, the civilization's decline was not solely natural. Political and social shifts, including invasions or gradual assimilation by Mycenaean Greeks, may have contributed. Unlike some abrupt collapses, the fading of the Minoans carries a sense of quiet unraveling, a civilization's brilliance gradually dimming under the pressure of forces beyond its control. In this, They mirror the delicate balance observed in many ancient societies, flourishing at the intersection of human ingenuity and the whims of nature, yet never immune to the passage of time. The artifacts of the Minoans, pottery, frescoes, and everyday tools, offer glimpses into their domestic and social life. Colorful ceramics indicate both functional and ceremonial use, decorated with motifs reflecting the natural world and human activity. Jewelry crafted from gold, semi-precious stones, and faience illustrates both technical skill and aesthetic sensibility, suggesting a society that valued beauty in daily life. These objects, though fragments, allow us to reconstruct not only the physical life of the Minoans, but also their worldview. Through them, we sense a people attentive to detail, engaged with art and ritual, and deeply connected to the landscapes and seas that surrounded them. Perhaps what is most compelling about the Minoans is their combination of brilliance and enigma. Their cities, art, and artifacts reveal extraordinary sophistication, yet so much remains unknown. We cannot read their scripts fully, we cannot hear their voices, and we cannot walk their halls as they did. This tension between what is visible and what is unknowable draws the mind into contemplation. It is a quiet mystery that captivates without overwhelming, inviting us to imagine the lives of people who danced, traded, prayed, and dreamed in a world both foreign and familiar. The Minoans leave behind a profound lesson. Human creativity and beauty can endure even when the details of life are lost, whispering across millennia in color, form, and stone. As we leave Crete and prepare to venture toward the jungles and rivers of Mesoamerica, the Minoans remind us that the thread of human ingenuity runs through every continent and era. Here is a civilization whose light shone brightly for centuries, whose myths would inspire generations to come, and whose mysteries continue to stir the imagination. In their rise and gradual fading, we see the eternal dance of creation and impermanence, a theme that will recur as we explore other civilizations lost to time, each with its own brilliance, mystery, and whispering echoes waiting to be discovered. Deep in the tropical lowlands of what is now southern Mexico, along the winding rivers and dense jungles, the Olmec civilization emerged, leaving behind a legacy that continues to puzzle and fascinate modern scholars. Flourishing from around 1500 to 400 BCE, the Olmecs are often called the mother culture of Mesoamerica, a foundation upon which later civilizations, such as the Maya and Aztec, would build. Yet, unlike these successors, the Olmecs remained shrouded in mystery. Their cities, while sophisticated, were smaller and less monumental in comparison. Yet their artistry, religious symbols, and colossal stone heads reveal a civilization of remarkable vision and skill. These heads, carved from basalt, some reaching over 3 meters in height and weighing tens of tons, evoke the presence of leaders, deities, or ancestral spirits, though their precise meaning is lost to time. Each feature, each expression, conveys intention and authority, yet the society that created them is largely silent in written records, leaving us to wonder about the lives behind the stone. The Olmecs thrived in a world dominated by water and vegetation, their settlements strategically positioned along rivers that provided sustenance, transportation, and fertile soil. Villages were hubs of social interaction, trade, and ceremonial activity. Archaeological evidence suggests the cultivation of maize, beans, squash, and cacao, alongside the domestication of animals and the collection of wild resources. These practical undertakings were balanced by a profound attention to artistry and ritual. The Olmecs molded jade, carved intricate figurines, and created finely worked obsidian tools, blending utility with beauty in ways that suggest a deeply aesthetic society. Even everyday objects carried symbolic meaning, a reflection of a culture that infused daily life with spiritual awareness. Central to the Olmec story is their religious and symbolic life. The colossal heads, often depicted wearing helmet-like headdresses, may represent rulers, warriors, or even gods, serving as both political and spiritual icons. Other carvings depict hybrid creatures, combining human and animal features, suggesting shamanic practices and beliefs in the transformation between the natural and supernatural worlds. This intricate symbolism hints at a worldview in which humans were closely connected to nature, capable of influencing and being influenced by spiritual forces. Ritual centers, plazas, and pyramidal mounds reveal a society attuned to ceremony and collective experience, where gatherings, offerings, and processions were likely common, uniting the community through shared belief and practice. Yet the Olmecs remain enigmatic in key ways. Unlike the later Maya, who left extensive written records, the Olmecs' glyphs, symbols, and artistic motifs have resisted full interpretation. There is evidence of early writing, but it is limited and fragmentary, leaving gaps in our understanding of governance, social hierarchy, and the daily lives of ordinary people. Were these heads rulers, deities, or ancestral figures? How were decisions made within the society? What stories did parents tell their children at night? And what lessons were inscribed in the rhythm of ritual and craft? These questions linger, allowing the mind to wander through possibilities and imagine a civilization vibrant and complex, yet ultimately silent. The scale of Olmec artistry is particularly striking given the technology available at the time. Moving massive basalt boulders over long distances without wheeled vehicles or draft animals would have required coordination, ingenuity, and communal effort on a monumental scale. The creation of these heads is both a technical and social marvel, demonstrating not just skill in carving, but also the ability to organize labor, resources, and knowledge across distances. This combination of practical expertise and symbolic intent reflects a civilization deeply aware of both the material and spiritual dimensions of life. Each monument is a dialogue across centuries, a silent testimony to human ambition and imagination. Trade and connectivity were crucial to Olmec society. Artifacts and materials, such as jade from distant highlands and obsidian from volcanic sources, traveled across the region, linking settlements and cultures. These exchanges were not merely economic. They facilitated the spread of ideas, religious concepts, and artistic techniques, establishing the Olmecs as cultural innovators whose influence resonated for centuries. The civilization's reach, though modest compared to later empires, was sophisticated, suggesting an early understanding of networks, alliances, and interdependence. This sense of connection, both practical and spiritual, is woven into the very fabric of Olmec life, offering glimpses of a people who understood their place in a larger world. The decline of the Olmec civilization, like much of their history, is partially obscured by time. By 400 BCE, many of the major centers were abandoned, leaving behind enigmatic ruins and colossal heads that continue to fascinate and puzzle. Theories suggest environmental changes, shifting rivers, social upheaval, or assimilation into emerging cultures may have played a role. There is no single dramatic event to explain the decline. Rather, it was a gradual fading, a soft retreat of human activity into the surrounding landscape. This gentle disappearance, as with many lost civilizations, leaves room for contemplation. It reminds us that even the most influential cultures can vanish quietly, leaving only the echoes of artistry, spirituality, and human endeavor. The allure of the Olmecs lies not only in their accomplishments, but also in the space they leave for imagination. The colossal heads, the jade figurines, and the ceremonial centers are tangible, yet their full stories remain tantalizingly beyond reach. It is a civilization that invites meditation rather than conclusion, reflection rather than certainty. Each artifact, each mound, each carving is a fragment of a narrative that was once lived fully, yet now exists only in suggestion and shadow. In these silences, we encounter the same tension that draws us to all lost civilizations, the interplay between brilliance and absence, between human creation and the quiet reclamation of time. As we leave the rivers and jungles of Mesoamerica, the Olmecs remind us that civilization is both fragile and enduring. Their influence echoes through subsequent cultures, yet their own story remains partially hidden, whispering across centuries. In their artistry, ritual, and enigmatic symbols, we sense a people deeply attuned to the forces of nature, spirituality, and community. Their presence is felt not through words, but through the quiet majesty of stone and jade, through forms that continue to inspire awe and curiosity. And as we journey onward, we carry with us the lesson of the Olmecs, that the essence of human civilization is as much in the mysteries it leaves behind as in the achievements it records. Far across the Pacific coast of what is now northern Peru, long before the grandeur of the Inca, lay the civilization of Norte Chico, one of the earliest urban cultures in the Americas. Flourishing between roughly 3,500 and 1800 BCE, Norte Chico is remarkable not for monumental temples carved from stone, nor for painted frescoes, but for its subtle mastery of human organization and engineering. In a landscape defined by arid deserts and narrow river valleys, this civilization built cities with remarkable sophistication, using sun-dried mud bricks to create platform mounds, ceremonial plazas, and residential compounds. The settlements, including Carroll, the largest and most famous, reveal a society capable of planning, coordinating labor, and cultivating resources in a challenging environment. Walking through these ancient sites in imagination, one can sense a people deeply attuned to their surroundings, shaping the land to sustain both life and culture, leaving behind a civilization that whispers its story rather than shouts it. The daily life of Norte Chico was intimately connected with the rhythm of the rivers. Irrigation systems, carefully engineered to channel water across the dry valleys, supported the cultivation of cotton, beans, squash, and maize. Cotton, in particular, was crucial not only for clothing, but as a commodity for fishing nets and trade, weaving together the economy and social life of the region. The society appears to have been organized around both practical needs and ceremonial life, as evidenced by large plazas and platform mounds. These public spaces were likely used for gatherings, ritual activities, and community decision-making, suggesting that Norte Chico placed a profound emphasis on social cohesion and shared experience. It is a civilization that balances survival with subtle sophistication, a society that quietly mastered both land and labor. Unlike many other early civilizations, Norte Chico left no written records. Its story emerges through architecture, artifacts, and the remnants of everyday life. Stones, tools, and remains of structures form a mosaic of human endeavor. Yet the voice of the people, the words they spoke, the stories they told, the prayers they whispered, remain silent. This absence transforms their achievements into something simultaneously tangible and mysterious. The monumental mounds, for example, are undeniably real, yet their purpose, construction sequence, and the rituals associated with them remain partially speculative. Archaeologists can infer social complexity, centralized planning, and ceremonial importance, but the human narratives, the individual lives behind the stones, remain tantalizingly out of reach. The contrast between what is known and what remains mysterious is at the heart of Norte Chico's fascination. On one hand, the engineering feats, such as multi-tiered mounds, plazas aligned with celestial events, and sophisticated irrigation systems, demonstrate a society with advanced knowledge of organization, mathematics, and environmental adaptation. On the other hand, the absence of fortifications, the lack of elaborate art, and the silence of written language leave the human element suspended in shadow. We see the structures, yet the full tapestry of social, spiritual, and cultural life is obscured. This tension, the tangible versus the elusive, is a recurring theme in the study of lost civilizations, reminding us that human history is often more poetic than linear, more whispered than chronicled. Ceremonial life in Norte Chico appears to have been of profound importance. Large platform mounds, carefully constructed from mud bricks, dominate the settlements, suggesting spaces dedicated to collective ritual rather than personal or royal power. Some scholars propose that music, dance, or other forms of performance may have accompanied religious or civic ceremonies, binding the community together in shared experience. These practices, though largely invisible to us, are hinted at in the very layout of the cities: plazas that invite assembly, mounds that command attention, and pathways that guide movement. The emphasis on collective participation rather than hierarchical display speaks to a society that valued cohesion, shared purpose, and spiritual resonance over the glorification of individuals. Trade and resource management were equally essential to Norte Chico's vitality. Evidence of long-distance trade, including the movement of spondylus shells from coastal areas into the highlands, points to a complex network of exchange and influence. These networks allowed the civilization to flourish in a region where survival required ingenuity, cooperation, and foresight. In a landscape where rainfall was scarce and the desert threatened expansion, Norte Chico demonstrates the human capacity to adapt, to plan, and to thrive against environmental constraints. Their achievements are subtle yet profound, reminding us that brilliance does not always announce itself in grandeur, but can reside in quiet mastery of land, labor, and social coordination. The decline of Norte Chico remains enigmatic, much like the civilization itself. By around 1800 BCE, many of the settlements were abandoned, leaving behind mounds, plazas, and irrigation channels as silent witnesses. Environmental changes, such as shifting river courses, soil salinization, or climatic fluctuations, may have played a role, alongside social transformations and possible migration. There is no evidence of dramatic warfare or catastrophic invasion. Instead, the disappearance feels like a slow fading, a quiet receding of human presence into the surrounding landscape. This gentle disappearance adds to the civilization's mystery, allowing the imagination to fill in the spaces where history remains silent. It is a reminder that not all endings are violent or sudden. Some vanish into the subtle folds of time, leaving whispers rather than cries. Artifacts and architecture alike reveal a society both practical and contemplative. The mounds and plazas were constructed with skill and intentionality, reflecting not only engineering knowledge, but also an understanding of social and ceremonial importance. Tools and remnants of daily life demonstrate that people balanced work and ritual, cultivation and community, survival and shared meaning. Yet these tangible traces are only fragments, shadows of a culture that cannot speak to us directly. This interplay of presence and absence, the clear evidence of sophisticated organization and the silent human narratives, imbues Norte Chico with a quiet, contemplative allure. It is a civilization that teaches patience, reverence, and the subtle appreciation of human ingenuity. As we leave the river valleys of Norte Chico, the mind carries with it an understanding of civilization's delicate balance between survival and expression. These ancient people thrived in harmony with their environment, organizing complex urban and ceremonial spaces without leaving written words. Their story, reconstructed from mud bricks and river plains, is both clear in its ingenuity and mysterious in its humanity. Norte Chico invites us to reflect on the quieter aspects of history, the civilizations whose brilliance lies not in monumental spectacle, but in subtle mastery, the societies whose whispers survive where words have vanished. And as we continue our journey, we move toward other civilizations whose echoes, like those of Norte Chico, speak softly across the millennia, waiting to be heard with patience and wonder. In the quiet recesses of history, civilizations left behind more than walls and roads. They left fragments of their beliefs, art, and rituals, whispers of a worldview now mostly lost. Temples, ceremonial complexes, and intricately carved statues offer tantalizing glimpses into how these societies understood life, death, and the cosmos. In some places, murals that have survived centuries of decay depict scenes of daily life intertwined with sacred ceremonies, suggesting a profound connection between the mundane and the divine. Each symbol, Each carefully painted figure hints at stories and practices that have no direct analog in the present, leaving us with questions as profound as the mysteries themselves. In ancient Mesopotamia, for instance, inscriptions on clay tablets reveal complex religious hierarchies, gods whose names echo faintly through history, and rituals that structured society's rhythm. Yet, much of the meaning behind these ceremonies remains elusive, obscured by time, language, and lost context. Similarly, in the dense jungles of Central and South America, civilizations like the Maya and the Olmecs created monumental stone carvings and ritual sites aligned with celestial events. These alignments suggest a sophisticated understanding of astronomy and cosmology, yet the spiritual significance behind each structure and the narratives recounted during sacred ceremonies are largely unknowable today. The more we uncover, the more the mysteries multiply, as if the past deliberately guards its secrets. Art, too, becomes a bridge into the spiritual life of forgotten peoples. In cave paintings across Europe, Africa, and Asia, depictions of animals, human figures, and symbolic patterns speak of rituals, perhaps shamanic journeys, seasonal celebrations, or rites of passage. The deliberate repetition of certain forms, the hidden locations of these artworks deep inside caves, and the meticulous care with which they were created indicate that these were not merely decorative but held sacred meaning. Similarly, pottery, jewelry, and funerary objects found in burial sites reveal beliefs about the afterlife and the journey of the soul. Each piece hints at practices that structured daily life and bound communities together through shared rituals, yet we may never fully comprehend the intentions behind these sacred acts. Music, dance, and oral traditions were often inseparable from these practices. The rhythm of drums, the hum of chants, and the movements of ritual dances were not only forms of expression, but vessels for connecting with the unseen forces that guided these civilizations. While the instruments themselves may survive, the soundscapes, the melodies, and the ceremonial context have largely vanished. In remote corners of the world, echoes of these traditions survive faintly in folk practices, offering hints at how humans once sought harmony with the natural world and the divine. Yet even these echoes are filtered through centuries of transformation, leaving the original rituals just out of reach, a shadow of their former power. Perhaps the most haunting element of lost spiritual practices is how they disappear alongside the civilizations that nurtured them. Catastrophe, conquest, climate change, or gradual decline can erase not only people, but also the collective memory of their sacred acts. Where cities once celebrated the rhythm of the cosmos through elaborate rites, now only stone and silence remain. Temples crumble, sacred texts decay, and oral traditions fade into obscurity. Yet, in these ruins, there is a persistent voice of the past, inviting contemplation and reflection. Each artifact, each fragment of a ceremony, acts as a subtle thread connecting the present to a time when humans sought to understand their place in the universe in ways that were intimate, profound, and ineffably mysterious. In this section, the focus is not just on the evidence of lost rituals, but on the emotional resonance they carry. The quiet awe of standing before a weathered altar, the curiosity sparked by an undeciphered glyph, or the fleeting insight into a society that honored life and death in ways we can scarcely imagine. These experiences bridge history and imagination. As we explore the spiritual and cultural practices of civilizations that no longer exist, we are reminded of the fragility of memory, the richness of human creativity, and the mysteries that remain just beyond our reach. The past whispers its stories through the remnants of devotion, artistry, and celebration, inviting us to imagine, to wonder, and to dream of lives that once flourished in harmony with beliefs now lost to time. Across the sweep of human history, empires have risen with grandeur, their power stretching over vast landscapes, only to vanish almost without a trace, leaving behind ruins that hint at former glory and unanswered questions. These forgotten empires often rival or even surpass more familiar civilizations in sophistication, organization, and influence, yet their stories are shrouded in mystery. From sprawling cities with meticulously planned streets to monumental palaces whose purposes remain debated, each site offers a silent testimony to the ingenuity, ambition, and cultural complexity of societies long erased from memory. The deeper we delve into these forgotten realms, the more the boundaries between fact and speculation blur, inviting us to imagine not only what they achieved, but also why they disappeared. Consider Cahokia, once the largest urban center north of Mexico, flourishing along the Mississippi River centuries before European contact. Its massive earthen mounds, aligned with astronomical events, suggest a civilization with complex social, religious, and political structures. Archaeologists have uncovered evidence of trade networks, agricultural mastery, and carefully orchestrated city planning. Yet within a few centuries, Cahokia was abandoned, its structures overtaken by nature. The reasons for this sudden decline remain uncertain. Climate change, resource depletion, social unrest, or disease may have played a role, but the disappearance itself becomes part of the civilization's story, a haunting reminder of the fragility of human achievement. Standing amidst these mounds today, one can almost hear echoes of ceremonial drums, imagine bustling marketplaces, and sense the rhythms of daily life, now lost in the passage of time. Far across the ocean, the Olmec civilization of Mesoamerica presents another enigma. Known as the mother culture of the region, the Olmecs created colossal stone heads, intricate jade artifacts, and ceremonial centers that reveal a deep understanding of both art and engineering. Yet their society vanished long before the rise of the Maya or Aztec civilizations, leaving few written records and an abundance of questions. Scholars puzzle over the purpose of their monuments, the meaning behind their symbolic carvings, and the social or environmental pressures that may have led to the civilization's abrupt disappearance. This tension between the impressive permanence of their creations and the ephemeral nature of their existence captures the essence of lost empires, towering achievements coupled with profound mystery. In the distant reaches of the Indian subcontinent, the Indus Valley Civilization flourished around 2500 BCE, boasting advanced urban planning, sophisticated drainage systems, and vibrant trade networks extending hundreds of miles. Cities like Mohenjo-daro and Harappa reveal a society organized with remarkable precision, suggesting centralized authority and a strong cultural cohesion. Yet, by the second millennium BCE, these cities were abandoned, leaving behind streets, granaries, and artifacts, but no decipherable written records to explain the reasons for their decline. Natural disasters, shifting river courses, or internal societal changes may have contributed, but the absence of definitive evidence transforms their story into a quiet enigma, a civilization frozen in mystery, yet echoing through its remaining stones. Even in the Mediterranean, we find vanished powers whose influence lingers in subtle ways. The Hittites, for instance, built a formidable empire in Anatolia, maintaining trade routes and diplomatic relations with Egypt and Mesopotamia. Yet their cities and texts were almost entirely lost for centuries, surviving only through fragmented records in foreign archives and archaeological rediscovery. What caused the Hittites to disappear from historical prominence remains partly unknown, yet the traces of their sophisticated governance, legal systems, and cultural achievements continue to challenge our understanding of ancient politics and human resilience. What unites these empires, whether in North America, Mesoamerica, South Asia, or the Mediterranean, is not just the grandeur of their accomplishments, but the questions they leave behind. Their political structures, from monarchies to councils and priestly classes, reveal societies deeply concerned with organization, justice, and social order. Yet, even the most meticulous systems were vulnerable to the forces of nature, external invasion, economic collapse, or internal strife. In studying these civilizations, we confront the fragile balance between human ambition and the impermanence of all human endeavors. Each rise and fall serves as a silent lesson, illustrating that power, while awe-inspiring, is ultimately transient. These forgotten empires also illuminate the human desire to leave a legacy, to shape the world and be remembered. Palaces, temples, statues, and inscriptions were designed to endure. Yet even the most monumental works cannot entirely shield a civilization from the erosion of time. The emptiness that now surrounds their remnants heightens the sense of mystery, inviting reflection on the impermanence of authority and the subtle forces that erase memory. As we wander through the remnants of city walls or stand before the ghostly outlines of long-abandoned streets, we are struck not only by what was accomplished, but by the profound silence that follows their disappearance. In contemplating these vanished societies, one is drawn to questions that extend beyond the historical record. What made these empires rise with such strength? Why did they fall so quietly, leaving few clues behind? How much knowledge, artistry, and wisdom have been lost along with them? By examining their achievements, we catch fleeting glimpses of human ingenuity, resilience, and creativity, yet the mystery of their decline reminds us of the limits of our understanding. This interplay of brilliance and enigma, of order and sudden disappearance, creates a narrative that is as haunting as it is fascinating. Ultimately, studying forgotten empires and political mysteries allows us to glimpse the delicate thread that holds civilizations together. It reveals that even the most powerful societies are vulnerable to forces beyond their control, whether environmental, social, or cosmic. Yet, in their absence, they continue to inspire curiosity, wonder, and reflection, encouraging us to seek knowledge not only of what remains, but also of what has vanished. Their stories, half-hidden and partially reconstructed, offer a mirror to our own civilization, reminding us that all human endeavors, no matter how grand, are subject to the silent passage of time. Through this lens, lost empires become more than archaeological curiosities. They become living lessons whispered across centuries, bridging the known and the unknowable, the light of achievement and the shadows of mystery. The story of humanity is not written solely in the achievements of great cities, empires, or cultures. It is also etched in the silence left behind when nature, circumstance, or fate overwhelms them. Across millennia, civilizations have risen to astonishing heights, only to be swept aside by forces beyond their control. Earthquakes that shatter monuments, volcanic eruptions that bury towns in ash, floods that erase entire settlements, and prolonged droughts that drain the life from fertile lands. These are the unseen architects of history's most enduring mysteries. In studying these cataclysms, we gain not only a deeper understanding of the fragility of human endeavor, but also a haunting appreciation for the impermanence of civilizations, no matter how powerful or sophisticated. The eruption of Thera, the volcanic island in the Aegean Sea, is one of the most dramatic examples of nature's sudden intervention. Once a thriving Minoan settlement, the eruption left behind layers of volcanic ash, preserving streets, frescoes, and artifacts, yet simultaneously obliterating lives and reshaping the surrounding landscape. The shockwaves of the disaster may have rippled across the ancient Mediterranean world, destabilizing trade routes and influencing the eventual decline of the Minoans. In the preserved ruins of Akrotiri, one can imagine daily life interrupted in an instant. The vibrant markets, ceremonial processions, and the laughter of children silenced under the weight of catastrophe. Here, the line between history and tragedy blurs, as the grandeur of human creativity meets the raw, unstoppable force of nature. Similarly, prolonged droughts have been silent agents of collapse, eroding the foundations of once prosperous societies. In the American Southwest, the ancestral Puebloans built intricate cities, with cliff dwellings and ceremonial centers that reflected remarkable architectural skill and social organization. Yet, centuries of changing climate, reduced rainfall, and the depletion of essential resources forced migrations, leaving abandoned homes and silent ceremonial spaces as reminders of lives carefully built and suddenly uprooted. These environmental pressures remind us that human resilience, while formidable, is not infinite. Even societies capable of remarkable adaptation can succumb when the balance of nature shifts irreversibly. Floods and rising waters have also claimed civilizations, often leaving only tantalizing fragments behind. Ancient cities in Mesopotamia, cradled between the Tigris and Euphrates, thrived for centuries but faced periodic inundations that could destroy crops, undermine settlements, and challenge the social fabric. Archaeological layers of sediment reveal traces of catastrophic flooding, suggesting that these events, combined with political pressures and resource competition, may have contributed to the decline of once mighty centers of civilization. The contrast is striking. Civilizations capable of profound creativity and innovation brought low by the quiet, unrelenting power of water. Pandemics and disease have played equally decisive roles in the disappearance of human societies. Although invisible to the eye, their impact has reshaped demographics, economies, and social structures. Outbreaks of illness could sweep through densely populated cities, reducing populations and eroding the workforce essential to maintain infrastructure or trade. In some cases, the collapse of public health and social cohesion may have accelerated the abandonment of cities, leaving behind streets and homes frozen in quiet desolation. In studying these events, we recognize the subtle and sometimes invisible forces that have shaped history as profoundly as earthquakes or volcanoes. Yet cataclysms are not always instantaneous. Some unfold slowly over generations, testing the resilience of societies and exposing vulnerabilities. Shifts in climate patterns, soil exhaustion, or resource scarcity can erode once thriving cultures gradually, leaving only whispers of their existence. Civilizations, such as the Maya, experience cycles of growth and decline, punctuated by periods of famine and political turmoil, reflecting the delicate balance between human ingenuity and environmental constraints. The slow unraveling of these societies offers a different kind of mystery, one that unfolds not in dramatic bursts, but in measured, almost imperceptible steps, leaving behind ruins that seem simultaneously intentional and accidental. In contemplating these events, we begin to see a pattern, a quiet reminder that human ambition is inseparable from vulnerability. The cities we build, the empires we construct, and the knowledge we accumulate exist within a delicate framework, always subject to the whims of nature, the unpredictability of environment, and the unseen hand of fate. The collapse of civilizations teaches us not merely about loss, but about the impermanence of achievement, the humility inherent in existence, and the resilience required to persist despite inevitable adversity. Each layer of ash, every abandoned structure, and each forgotten settlement becomes a testament to the ephemeral nature of human endeavor. There's also a poetic resonance in the way these cataclysms are preserved for us to discover. Volcanic ash encasing frescoes, river sediments layering over abandoned streets, or stone temples left standing after floods serve as both memorials and messages. They speak across time, offering glimpses into lives disrupted, societies transformed, and cultures that once thrived in harmony or struggle with their surroundings. These remnants do more than record events. They evoke imagination, inviting us to picture the people who lived, celebrated, feared, and persevered in these vanished worlds. It is within this quiet reflection that the true power of lost civilizations emerges, not only in what was achieved, but in what was irrevocably altered by forces beyond human control. By studying cataclysms and civilizational collapse, we confront the delicate intersection of human ambition and natural order. We witness the brilliance of civilizations, remarkable architecture, sophisticated governance, thriving trade networks, juxtaposed with the stark reality of their vulnerability. The interplay of creation and destruction, light and shadow, known achievement and unknown demise, imbues these histories with profound depth and resonance. We are reminded that while human ingenuity can shape the world itself shapes the trajectory of human life, often in ways that remain incomprehensible. In the silence of these abandoned cities, the quiet layers of sediment, and the forgotten records of ancient societies, we find both caution and inspiration. Cataclysms teach us humility, resilience, and the inexorable truth that even the grandest of civilizations can vanish, leaving only echoes for future generations to contemplate. And yet, in the act of rediscovery, we honor their legacy, reconstructing narratives from ruins, imagining lives long extinguished, and connecting with the profound mystery that surrounds human existence. Here, amid the remnants of collapse, the past whispers to us across centuries, reminding us of the fleeting nature of life, the enduring beauty of human creativity, and the mysteries that remain, quietly waiting to be understood. Beyond the ruins of ancient cities, beyond the artifacts preserved in museums, there exists a quieter, more elusive record of humanity, one written not in stone or clay, but in story, myth, and legend. These are the civilizations whose traces are faint, whose existence is suggested only through oral traditions, fragments of folklore, and tantalizing hints in text preserved far from their homelands. They are the civilizations that refuse to be fully known, whose stories hover between history and imagination, casting shadows that intrigue and unsettle. In listening closely to these whispers, we begin to perceive the subtle ways that memory survives, even when the physical structures of society have long since crumbled. One of the most famous of these is Atlantis, the sunken island first described by the Greek philosopher Plato. Atlantis is remembered not merely as a city, but as a symbol of lost knowledge and vanished grandeur, a society said to possess technological sophistication beyond its time. Scholars debate whether Atlantis was ever real, a parable, or a distorted memory of a real civilization lost to floodwaters or tectonic upheaval. Yet the endurance of the story itself speaks to a universal human fascination with what is gone, with the mystery of a society so advanced that it seemed almost otherworldly. Through Atlantis, we are invited to consider the possibility that knowledge, power, and culture can vanish almost entirely, leaving only echoes and imagination to reconstruct the past. Similarly, the legend of Lemuria, a hypothetical land said to have once existed in the Indian or Pacific Oceans, captivates with its blend of geography, spirituality, and human curiosity. Unlike civilizations verified by archaeological evidence, Lemuria exists largely in the imagination and in fragmented theories proposed by early geologists and occult writers. Some claim that this lost continent was home to ancient peoples whose wisdom and spiritual practices influenced civilizations that followed. While its physical existence is debated, the stories of Lemuria endure, highlighting a recurring theme. Human memory often preserves the essence of civilizations long after the tangible evidence has vanished. These myths remind us that storytelling itself can act as a kind of archaeology, unearthing truths not recorded in stone but carried in the collective consciousness. Across continents, similar echoes appear. In South America, the legend of a city of gold, El Dorado, drew explorers into dense jungles in search of civilization that may have existed only in ceremonial imagination, or perhaps in forgotten settlements whose details were swallowed by time. In Asia, stories of lost dynasties and secret kingdoms hint at sophisticated societies whose memory lingers in local folklore, songs, and ritual practices. Even in Africa, oral traditions speak of cities and empires long vanished, remembered only through the chants of griots and the careful retelling of elders. In each case, the stories are fragments, sometimes contradictory, often mysterious, yet they carry an undeniable power, a sense of civilization's enduring imprint, even in absence. Legends of lost civilizations often blur the lines between history and the human imagination, but this blending is itself revealing. They expose the universal longing to connect with what has been lost, to understand the grand sweep of human achievement, and to preserve the memory of societies that might otherwise vanish entirely. They also remind us that knowledge is not solely physical or material. It can survive in the stories we tell, in the myths we pass down and in the symbolic traces embedded in culture. Even when empires crumble and cities sink beneath waves or sand, their echoes remain in the imagination, carrying a quiet truth about the impermanence and resilience of human experience. Sometimes, these legends are tethered to fragments of reality, whispers of civilizations that may have existed in some form. The stories of Atlantis, Lemuria, or other lost kingdoms often reflect encounters with real settlements destroyed by floods, earthquakes, or rising seas. Oral traditions may preserve knowledge of trade, astronomy, spiritual practices, or social structures in ways that modern archaeology has yet to fully comprehend. In this sense, legends serve as a bridge, linking the known past to the unknowable, allowing us to glimpse patterns of civilization that might otherwise remain forever obscured. They invite reflection on how human memory functions, how societies encode knowledge, and how imagination can preserve cultural identity across millennia. The allure of lost civilizations in legend also lies in the way they provoke the imagination. When we read Plato's account of Atlantis or hear tales of sunken cities whispered across oceans, we are compelled to visualize not only the architecture or geography, but the daily lives of those who live there, the markets, the festivals, the governance, and the rituals. The mind fills in the gaps left by time, creating a vivid tapestry from sparse evidence. In this process, legend becomes a living medium, breathing life into societies that might otherwise remain silent. It is a quiet, reflective exploration, perfect for contemplation, drawing us into a meditative engagement with history, mystery, and the human experience. These stories also invite humility and curiosity. They remind us that history is incomplete, that knowledge is always partial, and that every generation uncovers only fragments of what has come before. While the ruins of actual civilizations can be measured and studied, legends occupy a liminal space, neither fully factual nor entirely imagined. They challenge our assumptions, expand our sense of possibility, and encourage us to entertain the notion that even more might have existed than the records suggest. In contemplating these whispered civilizations, we are invited to reflect on our own place in the arc of history and the legacies we might leave behind. Ultimately, legends that whisper through time are more than fanciful stories. They are a testament to the human need to remember, to imagine, and to preserve the essence of civilizations that have vanished. They blur the line between known and unknown, between history and myth, evoking wonder and quiet contemplation. In listening to these whispers, we are reminded that even when the physical structures of a society are gone, its spirit, influence, and memory can endure, carried forward in stories, symbols, and dreams. And in that enduring presence, the lost civilizations continue to speak to us, guiding our curiosity, inspiring reflection, and deepening our connection to the vast, mysterious tapestry of human history. As centuries pass, civilizations once thought lost begin to re-emerge, not fully, not perfectly, but in fragments that speak across time, whispering stories that have been buried beneath earth, sand, or water. Archaeology, the painstaking study of these remnants, serves as a bridge between the vanished past and the present, revealing glimpses of societies that have been swallowed by centuries of silence. From underwater ruins to hidden deserts, from dense jungles to forgotten valleys, archaeologists uncover clues that challenge long-held assumptions and invite us to reimagine the lives of those who came before us. Each discovery, whether monumental or subtle, carries the thrill of revelation, but also the weight of mystery. For every question answered, countless more arise. Under the waves, entire civilizations have been preserved in ghostly silence, waiting for explorers to illuminate them. Off the coast of India, the submerged city of Dwarka evokes both wonder and debate. Believed to have been a thriving urban center thousands of years ago, Dwarka was said to be a capital of legend, linked to stories in ancient texts. Archaeological dives reveal stone foundations, streets, and artifacts. Yet much remains unexplained. How was it constructed? Why did it sink? And what daily lives did its inhabitants lead? Similarly, the ruins of Pavlopetri, off the coast of Greece, show city planning, roads, and buildings dating back over 5,000 years. These underwater discoveries force us to reconcile the evidence of human ingenuity with the enduring mystery of disappearance, suggesting that even the most advanced societies can be reclaimed only partially, as fragments of memory frozen in time. On land, deserts and jungles hold their own secrets. In the sands of Egypt, long-lost settlements occasionally emerge from shifting dunes, revealing streets, homes, and temples that hint at thriving communities previously unknown. In Central and South America, dense rainforests conceal cities of stone, temples, and plazas, remnants of civilizations like the Maya or smaller, less documented peoples whose complexity rivals better-known societies. Remote valleys in Asia and Africa reveal forgotten palaces and ceremonial complexes, offering glimpses of political sophistication, spiritual practice, and daily life. Each discovery, painstakingly excavated and studied, illuminates part of the past, but the gaps left behind remind us that what survives is only a fraction of what once was. Modern technology has expanded the horizons of rediscovery, revealing landscapes and structures invisible to the naked eye. Satellite imagery, LiDAR scans, and ground-penetrating radar now allow archaeologists to map ancient cities beneath dense canopies or beneath layers of sediment, uncovering patterns of roads, walls, and habitations that were hidden for centuries. In Central America, LiDAR revealed sprawling Maya cities previously unknown, with intricate networks of terraces, causeways, and plazas that suggest a far more complex society than scholars had imagined. These technological advances offer a new kind of wonder, the ability to see entire civilizations emerge from obscurity, layer by layer, while still preserving the mysteries that refuse to be fully solved. Yet, rediscovery is never complete. Every excavation, every analysis brings tantalizing questions to the surface. Why were certain cities abandoned while others thrived? What roles did political, spiritual, or environmental factors play in their decline? How much knowledge, once held collectively, has been irrevocably lost? In some cases, even the material evidence challenges our understanding. Inscriptions that remain undeciphered, monumental structures whose purpose is unclear, or artifacts that suggest technological mastery beyond what had been previously assumed for the time. These puzzles serve as reminders that history is not a fully illuminated landscape, but a terrain of shadows and fragments, waiting for the patient eye and the imaginative mind to reconstruct it. The process of rediscovery also highlights the interplay between human memory and interpretation. Archaeologists rely not only on physical remains, but also on oral traditions, historical texts, and comparative studies to make sense of what they find. In this way, rediscovery becomes a dialogue across centuries, where fragments of stone, clay, and metal converse with stories passed down through generations. Each new insight reshapes our understanding, revealing connections between distant civilizations and suggesting networks of trade, migration, and cultural exchange previously unimagined. Yet, with each answer comes the realization that much remains hidden. The past resists full comprehension, leaving us in a constant state of inquiry and awe. Rediscovery also invites reflection on the nature of human civilization itself. As we uncover the ruins of forgotten societies, we are confronted with the impermanence of even the most sophisticated achievements. Palaces crumble, walls fall, and roads are reclaimed by nature. Yet the echoes of human ingenuity persist, allowing us to trace the arc of innovation, creativity, and adaptation. In many ways, these archaeological mysteries mirror the human condition, brilliant and fragile, transient and enduring, partially illuminated yet forever mysterious. They remind us that civilization is not static, but a delicate balance between creation and entropy, growth and dissolution, knowledge and oblivion. Finally, The act of rediscovery is a deeply human experience, blending curiosity, patience, and reverence. Standing before a newly unearthed city, holding a fragment of pottery, or observing the alignment of ancient monuments evokes a profound connection to those who lived, worked, and dreamed in these vanished worlds. It bridges the temporal divide, allowing us to imagine not only their achievements, but also their fears, joys, and daily lives. In this intimate encounter with history, the line between fact and speculation, known and unknown, blurs beautifully. Each site, each artifact, each layer of sediment becomes a story, a whisper from the past urging us to listen, reflect, and wonder. Rediscovery and archaeological mysteries, then, are more than mere academic pursuits. They are invitations to explore the shadowed spaces of history, to follow the fragile threads of memory, and to engage with civilizations that have vanished yet still speak through their remnants. They remind us that even when a society disappears from sight, it can continue to shape our understanding of human potential, ingenuity, and mystery. And as we uncover these fragments, layer by layer, we realize that the past is not entirely lost. It is waiting patiently, quietly, for those who are willing to seek it out, to imagine its stories, and to let the echoes of forgotten civilizations inspire both awe and reflection. In the quiet spaces between the ruins of forgotten cities, beneath layers of sediment and ash, there lies a subtle wisdom that has survived the centuries, whispering to those who are willing to listen. Lost civilizations, though erased from maps and absent from textbooks, leave behind traces that speak not only of their achievements, but of profound truths about humanity itself. Each ruin, artifact, and fragmentary inscription carries a lesson about the fleeting nature of power, the endurance of creativity, and the fragile balance between human ambition and the forces that govern our world. These vanished societies are not simply objects of curiosity. They are mirrors, reflecting both what we have inherited and what we risk losing. As we study civilizations that have disappeared, we are confronted with contrasts that are both stark and illuminating. There is the brilliance of human achievement, meticulously planned cities, monumental architecture, intricate art, and complex social organization. And yet, there is the quiet inevitability of impermanence. Empires that seemed invincible succumbed to environmental change, internal conflict, or the slow erosion of knowledge over generations. In this juxtaposition, we recognize that the rise of civilizations is never guaranteed, and that the fall of even the most sophisticated societies can occur with subtle, inexorable inevitability. It is in this interplay between triumph and decline that the true lessons emerge, speaking to resilience, humility, and the responsibility inherent in the stewardship of culture and knowledge. One of the most profound lessons concerns the fragility of human achievement. Cities once bustling with life now lie silent, their streets empty, their monuments crumbling. The Indus Valley cities, for example, with their remarkably advanced urban planning and sewage systems, were abandoned, leaving behind a mystery that is yet to be fully explained. Cahokia's massive earthen mounds, once the center of trade and ceremony, are now overgrown, reminders of both the ingenuity and vulnerability of human societies. These examples reveal that knowledge, skill, and organization, while formidable, are always contingent, dependent upon a web of environmental, social, and economic factors. They remind us that permanence is an illusion, and that even the most monumental human creations are subject to the slow, unyielding passage of time. Yet, alongside fragility exists remarkable resilience. Many lost civilizations left legacies that endure subtly in language, culture, and technology. The Hittites, though almost erased from memory, influenced neighboring civilizations in diplomacy, law, and trade practices. The Maya, despite periods of collapse, contributed astronomical knowledge, mathematical innovations, and artistic traditions that continue to inspire. Even civilizations whose physical remnants have vanished entirely often leave intangible legacies, shaping belief systems, cultural norms, and patterns of thought that persist long after cities are reclaimed by nature. In recognizing these traces, we begin to understand that human creativity is not entirely bound to survival. It can transcend disappearance, leaving ripples that extend across time and geography. Lost civilizations also teach us about adaptation and environmental awareness. Many societies that vanished did so in part because of changes in climate, resource depletion, or natural disasters. The ancestral Puebloans, for instance, adapted to the arid landscapes of the American Southwest with intricate irrigation systems and architectural innovations, yet centuries of drought eventually forced migration. The Minoans, thriving on Crete, were dramatically affected by the eruption of Thera, which reshaped the island and disrupted their civilization. In these stories, there is a lesson about the necessity of balancing human ambition with environmental stewardship, of listening to the rhythms of the natural world, and of respecting the delicate equilibrium on which societies depend. Modern civilizations can learn from these ancient experiences, understanding that sustainability and foresight are not new concerns but enduring imperatives. Perhaps the most subtle lessons come from the spiritual and cultural practices of lost societies. Rituals, art, and beliefs often outlast the physical structures in which they were nurtured, suggesting that the human spirit and imagination possess a resilience that material accomplishments alone cannot guarantee. In the caves of Lascaux or the temples of Angkor, we see evidence of devotion, creativity, and a desire to connect with something greater than ourselves. Even when these societies disappeared, the stories, symbols, and lessons embedded in their cultural practices continued to influence successors, reminding us that meaning and memory are preserved not only through stone and metal, but also through imagination, ritual, and collective consciousness. In reflecting on these practices, we gain insight into the ways humans seek purpose, structure, and understanding, a pursuit that persists regardless of the survival of cities or empires. Another striking insight from lost civilizations is the unpredictability of decline. While historians and archaeologists often search for single causes, war, famine, disease, the reality is almost always more complex. Civilizations are systems, intricate networks of social, political, economic, and environmental factors. A single disruption may trigger cascading effects, magnifying weaknesses and accelerating decline. The collapse of the Indus Valley, the abandonment of Cahokia, or the decline of the Hittites cannot be pinned to one event. Rather, they illustrate the interconnectedness of human endeavor, the vulnerability of interdependent systems, and the need to anticipate both internal and external pressures. In contemplating these collapses, we are reminded of the fragility of complex societies and the subtle factors that can shift the course of history, often beyond the control of any individual or group. Yet, amidst lessons of fragility, there is inspiration in the enduring mystery itself. Lost civilizations compel imagination, inviting us to reconstruct the lives, decisions, and experiences of people who walked the earth centuries or millennia ago. When we explore ruins, decipher undeciphered scripts, or analyze artifacts, we participate in a dialogue across time, a meditation on continuity and change, on human creativity, and on the persistence of curiosity. These societies, though vanished, continue to shape our sense of possibility, reminding us that human experience is both fleeting and profoundly impactful, capable of leaving ripples that extend long after physical disappearance. There is also a moral and philosophical dimension in reflecting on lost civilizations. They teach humility, reminding us that no matter the power, knowledge, or wealth a society amasses, permanence is never assured. The pyramids of Egypt, the palaces of the Maya, and the grand streets of Mohenjo-daro endure, yet even they exist in a context shaped by centuries of neglect, erosion, and reinterpretation. Their survival is remarkable, but it also underscores the precariousness of human achievement. In this, lost civilizations offer a meditation on the temporal nature of life and culture, inviting reflection on what truly matters and what might endure beyond our lifetimes. Finally, lost civilizations inspire wonder. They awaken curiosity about the vast possibilities of human history, highlighting the creativity, ambition, and ingenuity that have repeatedly emerged across the globe. They challenge us to expand our understanding of what societies can achieve, to question assumptions about linear progress, and to consider the richness of human diversity over time. Each discovery, each fragment, each whispered story encourages reflection not only on the past, but also on the present and future. By learning from these vanished worlds, we gain a sense of continuity, a connection to ancestors, and a deeper appreciation for the mysteries that shape human existence. In contemplating what lost civilizations teach us, we are invited into a reflective space, a quiet meditation on time, memory, achievement, and impermanence. They remind us that the accomplishments of human societies, however grand, are always intertwined with vulnerability, chance, and the vast, unknowable forces of nature. Yet, even in disappearance, civilizations leave traces that illuminate the potential, resilience, and creativity of humanity. They encourage us to listen to the past with humility and awe, to carry forward the lessons embedded in stone, art, and story, and to honor the enduring mystery of human history. Ultimately, lost civilizations are more than subjects of academic study or curiosity. They are teachers, guides, and companions across time. They urge us to cherish creativity, to respect the natural world, to understand the delicate balance of human endeavor, and to marvel at the resilience of the human spirit. In their silence, they speak volumes, reminding us that the echoes of the past can shape our present understanding and inspire our future imagination. By attending to these whispers from vanished worlds, we not only reconstruct history, but also engage in a profound exploration of what it means to be human, creative, fragile, persistent, and endlessly curious in the face of mystery. As we step back from the ruins, the legends, and the whispers of lost civilizations, a quiet reflection emerges, carrying us from the mysteries of the past into the possibilities of the future. The remnants of vanished cities, the echoes of rituals, and the fragments of knowledge remind us that history is not a static record, but a living dialogue between what was, what is, and what may yet be. Lost civilizations, though absent from the physical world, continue to resonate through time, influencing ideas, inspiring curiosity, and shaping the imagination of generations who seek to understand the intricate tapestry of human experience. In listening closely, we realize that these vanished societies are not entirely gone. They persist in the stories we tell, the lessons we draw, and the questions we continue to ask. In the silence of forgotten cities, one senses the pulse of human endeavor, the rhythm of daily life that once filled streets and plazas. Markets bustling with trade, children playing beneath the sun, ceremonies performed with reverence. All these scenes linger as ghostly impressions, inviting us to imagine lives lived with care, ambition, and creativity. Even as stone crumbles and landscapes shift, these impressions endure, carried forward in memory, myth, and the subtle influence they left upon neighboring civilizations. The past, it seems, has a quiet resilience, capable of reaching across millennia to touch the minds of those who pause to reflect. There is a gentle lesson in this persistence. The human achievement, though fragile, has the capacity to inspire long after its apparent end. The knowledge, artistry, and ingenuity of lost civilizations seep into our collective consciousness, influencing architecture, philosophy, astronomy, and art in ways that may be invisible but profoundly felt. The sophisticated planning of Mohenjo-daro, the monumental carvings of the Olmecs, the ceremonial complexity of the Maya, and the celestial alignment of Angkor. These accomplishments, though originating in distant times and places, continue to shape modern understanding of human potential. They remind us that even when civilizations vanish from sight, their impact lingers, subtle but enduring. At the same time, these echoes carry a cautionary note. The fragility of even the greatest societies reminds us that human ambition is always contingent upon forces beyond our control. Climate shifts, resource scarcity, internal conflict, and unforeseen catastrophes can undo centuries of careful planning. In contemplating the rise and fall of civilizations, we are reminded of the responsibility inherent in knowledge and power, and of the humility required to steward both wisely. The stories of vanished societies are, in this sense, both inspiration and admonition, illuminating the delicate balance that sustains human life and culture. Legends, myths, and oral traditions extend these lessons beyond the tangible. Atlantis, Lemuria, and the cities whispered in oral histories act as bridges between what was and what may yet be imagined. They invite reflection on the possibilities that exist beyond what has been documented, suggesting that human understanding is never complete and that mystery remains an essential companion to knowledge. Even without physical evidence, these stories shape imagination, provoke inquiry, and encourage us to explore the boundaries of what we believe is possible. They remind us that civilization is not only a matter of material achievements, but also of shared memory, narrative, and the capacity to envision worlds beyond our immediate perception. In contemplating these echoes, we also sense a continuum. The lives of people long gone are inextricably linked to our own, not through direct inheritance alone, but through inspiration, example, and cautionary lessons. Civilizations that vanished without trace or that left only fragments influence the shape of our societies today in subtle, often unrecognized ways. Architecture, language, governance, religious thought, and artistic expression all bear faint imprints of cultures that came before. To engage with these legacies is to participate in a conversation across time, connecting past, present, and future through curiosity, reflection, and imagination. The beauty of this reflection lies in its intimacy. Unlike formal history lessons, which often emphasize facts and dates, the stories of lost civilizations invite quiet meditation. They encourage us to imagine daily life in vanished cities, to ponder the aspirations and fears of people who lived centuries ago, and to consider how their experiences resonate with our own. In this gentle contemplation, the boundary between observer and observed softens, creating a sense of shared humanity across time. Every ruin, artifact, and story becomes a mirror, reflecting both the achievements of the past and the enduring questions of existence. What will endure? What will be forgotten? How will we be remembered? Finally, the echoes of lost civilizations are invitations to carry curiosity forward. They encourage us to explore, to question, and to honor the fragility and resilience inherent in human experience. They remind us that history is not only about what has been documented, but also about what has been imagined, remembered, and carried in spirit. In listening to these echoes, we are encouraged to cherish knowledge, to respect the natural and social systems that sustain life, and to cultivate a sense of wonder for what remains hidden and unknown. As we conclude our journey through vanished cities, sunken worlds, and whispered myths, we are left with a lingering sense of awe. Lost civilizations, though absent from the world we see, remain present in the quiet spaces of our imagination, shaping how we think, dream, and perceive the possibilities of human potential. They remind us that the past is never truly gone. It resonates quietly and persistently, shaping the contours of memory, culture, and possibility. And in that resonance, we find a gentle, meditative comfort, that the mysteries of history are not merely to be solved, but to be contemplated, cherished, and allowed to inspire both reflection and imagination.